Hello and a truly warm welcome to all of you, wherever you are in the world. Before we dive into today's incredible story, I want to take a moment to send out my very best wishes to you and your families. In these times, our health is our greatest treasure, so I sincerely hope this video finds you feeling strong, happy, and in the very best of health. Thank you for choosing to spend your time here with me today. Let's explore one of nature's most astonishing secrets together. Imagine the most extreme, the most hostile, the most unforgiving environment you can possibly think of. A place so cold that it seems to defy life itself. We're talking about the vast, frozen expanses of the Arctic tundra or the towering, wind-whipped peaks of the highest mountains. Here, the ground is permanently frozen in a layer called permafrost, and the air is so frigid that a cup of boiling water thrown into it would instantly turn into a cloud of ice crystals before it even hit the ground. For most of the year, this is a silent, still, and seemingly lifeless world, locked in a deep freeze. It feels like a place where time itself has stopped. But hidden within this icy grasp, buried under the snow and ice, are tiny, humble, and almost miraculous survivors. They are not large animals with thick fur or fancy hibernation techniques. They are plants. Specifically, a type of plant so small you might step on it without a second thought, mosses. And these mosses hold a secret power that seems to border on science fiction. They can do something that should be utterly impossible. They can be frozen solid, not just for days or months, but for decades, even centuries, and then, when the ice finally melts away, they can simply wake up, green up, and start growing again as if no time had passed at all. They are nature's ultimate time travelers, and their ability to cheat death in the deep freeze is one of the most incredible stories of resilience ever told. To understand how these mosses perform this magic trick, we first need to understand what freezing really means for a living thing. We all know that water expands when it freezes. This is why a can of soda left in the freezer will explode. Now, picture a living cell. It's a tiny, watery bag filled with all sorts of delicate machinery, nuclei, mitochondria, and other organelles. The cell itself is mostly water. When that water freezes, the sharp, expanding ice crystals act like millions of tiny, microscopic knives. They shred the cell's membrane from the inside out, they puncture and destroy the organelles, and they turn the cell's intricate internal structures into useless, frozen confetti. For most plants and animals, this is a death sentence. It's irreversible damage. This is why we can't just freeze a human being and bring them back to life. The cellular damage is too catastrophic. But certain mosses have spent millions of years evolving a set of biochemical tools that allow them to not just endure this process, but to essentially hit the pause button on their lives, waiting patiently for the thaw. The first and most critical part of their strategy is all about water control. These mosses are masters of dehydration. As the temperatures around them begin to drop, they don't fight the cold, they embrace it in a very specific way. They start to actively pull water out of their own cells. They force this water into the spaces between their cells. So, inside each cell, the contents become very, very concentrated, like a thick, sugary syrup. Meanwhile, the water that is now sitting between the cells is what freezes first. This is a brilliant move. The ice crystals form outside the cells, where they can't cause any critical damage. The inside of the cell, now much drier and packed with dissolved sugars and proteins, is much less likely to freeze solid. It becomes a viscous, glass-like state instead of forming sharp, destructive ice. This process is a form of cryoprotection, and it is the moss's #1 defense against turning into a popsicle. The key to making this dehydration work lies in some very special molecules that these mosses produce. The most important of these are sugars, a specific kind called disaccharides, like trehalose. You can think of these sugar molecules as tiny, magical bodyguards for the cell. As the water leaves the cell, these sugars move in. They have a unique property: they are very good at forming hydrogen bonds with the cell structures. In simple terms, they coat all the delicate parts of the cell, the proteins, the membranes, the DNA, in a protective, sugary shell. This shell holds everything tightly in place, preserving the cell's precise three-dimensional architecture. It's like putting a perfect, transparent, protective glaze over a priceless painting to protect it from fire and water. Without this sugar coating, the cell's machinery would fall apart during freezing and drying. With it, everything is kept stable and intact, ready to be rehydrated and switched back on. This state is not really living, it's not metabolizing or growing. It's called cryptobiosis, which means hidden life. The moss is in a state of suspended animation, and it can remain in this state for an unbelievably long time. And when we say a long time, we mean it. Scientists have done experiments that sound like they're from a fantasy novel. They have gone into the Arctic permafrost, drilled deep down, and collected samples of moss that have been frozen for hundreds, even thousands of years. In one famous case, mosses from a glacier in the Canadian Arctic that had been buried under the ice for over 400 years were brought back to a lab, carefully thawed, and placed under grow lights. And unbelievably, they grew. After 4 centuries of being frozen solid, these tiny plants sent out fresh, green shoots. It's as if they simply woke up from a long nap. This isn't just survival, this is a complete and total defiance of time. These mosses are living archives, holding genetic information that is centuries old, and they can just pick up where they left off. The implications of this are staggering. It means that in these frozen landscapes, there exists a vast, hidden bank of life, a library of dormant organisms just waiting for the conditions to become right again. This has completely changed how scientists view ecosystems in places like the tundra. As climate change causes glaciers to recede and permafrost to thaw, these ancient mosses are being exposed and are reviving. They are effectively greening the Arctic from ancient stock, creating new soil and new habitats for other organisms to follow. They are the pioneers, and their toolkit is patience on an epic scale. This incredible ability also fires the imagination about life beyond Earth. If a simple plant on our own planet can survive being frozen for centuries, what does that say about the possibility of life on other worlds? Mars, for instance, has ice caps and a frigid environment. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn, like Europa and Enceladus, are frozen ice balls with suspected oceans underneath. The study of these resilient mosses, a field called astrobiology, helps scientists understand the limits of life and what might be possible in the extreme environments of our solar system. These humble plants are teaching us that life may be far more tenacious and widespread in the universe than we ever dreamed. But back on Earth, the magic doesn't stop at just surviving the freeze. The revival process itself is a delicate dance. Thawing must happen slowly and naturally, usually with the gentle warmth of the spring sun and the meltwater it provides. If you were to take a frozen moss and try to thaw it too quickly with hot water, you would likely kill it. The shock would be too great. The natural thaw allows for a careful rehydration. The moss soaks up the liquid water, the protective sugar shells dissolve away, and the cell's machinery, which was perfectly preserved, slowly whirs back to life. Metabolic processes restart, photosynthesis begins again, and the moss turns from a brown, crispy-looking clump into a vibrant green, living plant within a matter of hours or days. It's a resurrection in the truest sense of the word. So, the next time you see a patch of moss, perhaps on a rock in a forest or between the cracks in a sidewalk, I want you to see it differently. Don't just see a simple, small plant. See a master of time. See an ancient survivor with a secret, superhuman power. See an organism that has learned the deepest secret of the universe, how to pause. In a world that is constantly changing, moving, and often stressful, these mosses teach us a profound lesson about resilience. It's not always about fighting back with force. Sometimes, the greatest strength lies in the ability to wait, to endure, to preserve your core self through the most difficult times, and to emerge intact and ready to grow when the long winter finally, inevitably, comes to an end. They are a beautiful, quiet testament to the fact that life, no matter how small, will always find a way.